Greetings, creeps. Welcome back to Hallowscream, radio for haunters, Halloween junkies, and the members of the UK Halloween Prop Makers Facebook group. We've plenty of freaky deaky content for your sick minds to absorb, including haunt tips, wretched reviews, props for props, and much more. So, we're finally into October, our favourite and usually most stressful month of the year. Right now, I'm sure you're all thinking, I need to get this project finished. How am I going to get this set up? Or what am I going to wear? But the important thing is, keep yourself calm. I always find it easier when I write a list of what I need to do, and that usually helps me keep a cool head. Normally I've decided how I'm going to set the haunt up months ago, but this year I've only just started. With Halloween being a Sunday this year, it also gives us a whole weekend to set up slowly, if you're not someone that's already set up before Halloween, that is. Last year, I finished setting up literally as my first visitor arrived, so I'm hoping to do a bit better this year. The point is, my fiendish friends, don't stress. October has only just begun, and we've got 5 weeks to get finished. After the last couple of years, I think we all need the escape Halloween brings, so let's keep our heads, get things done, and produce one of the best Halloweens we've ever had. And now let's jump into the show with Haunting Inspirations, Dead Ahead.
Haunting Inspirations.
Welcome back to Haunting Inspirations, my fiendish friends, where each week we will be looking at 3 different spooktacular home haunts that will hopefully inspire you with your own home haunts. We've got 3 really good ones this week, so I implore you to check all of them out. And we start with one just down the road from me, in a place called Marsh Gibbon in Oxfordshire. This is a video from 2013. The uploader Steve Scotton creates a fantastic example of how you can maximise a small space, showing a great little walkthrough that he's created on his driveway. We start with what looks like a witch's cabin. There's a table with potion bottles, spell books, and all manner of witchy items visible. We then enter the walkthrough, where we're taken to a small space with an animatronic witch stood in front of her cauldron. The next section leads you to the front door of the property, and then exits on the other side of the witch's cabin. And that's about it. It's very small, but the whole thing looks great. And if you're working with a small space, kind of like I am really, it really could be a good way to go. That's about it in this video, but I'm not really doing it justice, so do be sure to watch this one. It's short, but it really is a great example of what can be achieved in a small space. Our next home haunt was picked to inspire your deranged minds with this fantastic walkthrough video of Wicker Manor 2020. An American haunt, but a very good one. It is a walkthrough that lasts for a few minutes, but it really gives you a sense of what could be done by making the most out of a space. With some brilliant lighting, a couple of jump scares, and a fantastic introduction to the story of the Wicker Manor, with a host that is very obviously inspired by my own favourite horror host, the Crypt Keeper. I can't recommend this one enough. It's exactly where I want to get to eventually, though for me this is a bit of a way off. I need to get my balls back from that jar my wife keeps them in on the mantelpiece first, but I'll get there one day. Lastly for this week, we have a video from the Holy City Haunters of their Voodoo Swamp Yard Haunt in the US. This one is not a walkthrough, it's a garden display kind of haunt. Voodoo Swamp really shows what can be done with just a few effects, some really good prop work, and well designed set building. They have a really great creepy cabin facade with a classic cauldron creep prop witch stirring her cauldron while looking up to stare into your very soul. It's only a short video, at slightly under 3 minutes, but if you go to the Holy City Haunters channel, they also have a 17-minute video that goes behind the scenes, with in-depth looks at the props, set design and everything else, and it's really worth a look. That wraps up this week's segment, so be sure to return next week for more haunting inspirations.
Haunt tips.
Welcome back to Haunt Tips, where this week on Haunt Tips we'll be taking a look at the basics of foam props, the tools to use, and what products you can use on foam without destroying it. As someone that always does a kind of bodge job with his foam props, I've enlisted the help of a foam prop extraordinaire, James McClarty, who was kind enough to write a list of tools and how to use them for me. So I'm going to jump straight into his list, and hopefully you'll find this helpful as well. I know I did. Foam working tools. And for cutting we have the following. Hot wire cutters or a hot knife. These are perfect to use on white beaded polystyrene. James uses freeform hot wire cutter that he uses to cut channels for PVC pipes in the back of his tombstones. If you didn't know already, PVC piping on the back of your tombstones is a fantastic and easy way to strengthen them, and allows you to use longer ground stakes than the tiny little plastic ones that you normally get with your shop bought tombstones. Sharp knives, like a craft knife or Stanley knife, though the foam will dull the blades quickly. I've used a Stanley knife when building foam props myself, and James is right in warning that it really does dull the blade quickly. So if you do use a knife as your tool of preference, you may want to keep a pack of new blades ready. Hacksaws and similar blades can be used, but they will make a mess of white beaded polystyrene, so if you will be using that, be prepared to clean up a lot of mess. Styling foam props. Almost any implement or tool can be used to style or add a design to your foam project. Dremels work brilliantly, especially with a router attachment, though they can chew up white beaded polystyrene if you're not extra careful, but James has had great success with them. Lettering can be done by using a stencil to add the words you need. Then you can use any of the following to cut them out. A Dremel, with or without the router attachment, a hot wire pen, a soldering iron, or a sharp craft blade. Styling also covers any attachments or embellishments you might want to add. Make sure to use a foam-safe glue, as a lot of normal glues will melt your foam. Hot glue can be used carefully at lower temperatures, and a heat gun can be used for weathering for a stone effect, but be very careful, as too much heat will melt the foam very quickly. Painting foam props. You may want to seal your foam prior to painting to protect it. Many paints will also melt your foam. Mod Podge is a good product for this. There are other foam sealers on the market that will set it like stone, but they can be very expensive. James recommends emulsion and acrylic paints. Never spray paint unless you seal the foam first, as accelerants in the spray will melt the foam, especially the white beaded polystyrene foam. 2 to 3 coats of emulsion is normally enough to protect it from the elements. Then the acrylics are used to weather and detail. You can always reseal with Mod Podge if you like after you've finished painting, but James has found it's not needed. He's had tombstones out in all weather for a number of years and they're still being used today. Polystyrene and the blue, pink, yellow, silver backed foams you can find at DIY stores are all very versatile and can be used for more props than you'd think. They're easy to work with and you can get great results quickly. Most of the tools listed you'll find easily online or at hobby shops, but for the hot wire tools, James recommends a company called Hot Wire Foam Factory. There's a UK stockist called Terrascenic, whose website will be in the show notes. Mod Podge is available at hobby shops like Hobbycraft, and is also available at the range if you've not yet been there for your annual pilgrimage. And lastly, for your foam itself, James normally gets his from Wix, but you should be able to find it at most DIY stores. And that brings us to the end of this week's Haunt Tips. Massive shout out to you again, Jimmy, for all your help with this one. I'm sure that plenty of us working with foam needed this. I know I wasn't sure about hot tools and Mod Podge before speaking to you, so thank you once again for your help, my friend. And I hope to see James and all you other listeners back here next week for more haunt tips.
Wretched Review.
This week in the Wretched Review, we're going to be taking a look at a couple of more child-friendly Halloween and horror flicks, of 1991's Addams Family and Night Books, perfect for inspiring twisted minds of your own little monsters. Now there will be spoilers ahead, so if you haven't seen either of these, then you may want to skip ahead a little. If not, then buckle up as we take a look at two movies, starting with the Addams Family.
Aha! Showtime!
It's a miserable night.
I know, darling. Children, put down that antenna.
Uncle Fester, may I have the salt?
What do we say?
Now.
Unhappy, darling.
Oh, yes. Yes, completely.
There's lots to learn. Look, children.
Children, what are you doing?
I'm going to electrocute him.
I said no.
Please?
Oh, all right. Don't torture yourself, Gomez. That's my job.
Cara mia.
Sauvage.
Is this made from real lemons? Yes. I'll buy a cup if you buy a box of my delicious Girl Scout cookies. Are they made from real Girl Scouts?
The late, truly great Raul Julia plays Gomez Addams, who is in a state of depression, missing his brother Fester, as played by Christopher Lloyd. Fester has been missing for 25 years after a big fight they had. Family lawyer Tully arrives to discuss a trust fund in Fester's name, but we quickly discover Tully is in fact looking for money, as he's broke and owes money to a loan shark, Abigail Craven. Abigail waits for Tully in his office, demanding the money he owes her, and she has muscle with her in the form of her son, Gordon, who bears a striking resemblance to the missing Fester. Tully devises a plan to steal the Addams family fortune, with Gordon pretending to be Fester. As the movie progresses, the family become more and more suspicious of Gordon, but he feels more and more at home with the bizarre eccentricities of the Addams family. When several robbery attempts fail, Tully realizes Fester, as the older brother, is entitled to the family's fortune and home. Tully and Abigail see to it that the Addams are kicked out of their home, but Gordon is obviously not happy with the plan. Gordon slowly seems to become Fester and helps to thwart Tully's last plan. It is revealed that Abigail had in fact found Fester in a state of amnesia 25 years ago and made him believe he was in fact her son. Tully and Abigail meet their demise and the family can get back to normal, with Fester regaining his memories. While being a great family film in the classic Addams Family style we all know and love, the Addams Family is also a very good look at the family that has everything. Remove all the weird and wonderful spookiness that surrounds the Addams Family, and you have a family that really cares for one another. Gomez and Morticia are deeply in love and remain so through years of marriage. Wednesday and Pugsley have a great brother-sister relationship. They're close as siblings and they play together all the time. Granted that for the Addams kids that means finding new ways to maim or kill one another, but you get the drift. Morticia's mother lives with them and is closely involved with the family, as is their butler Lurch, who is just as much a part of the family as anyone else. They have money, granted handed down to them, but it gives them security. And at the end of the day, that's all we want. Financial security, and the knowledge that no matter how weird we are, our family will always love us. Mix that with the gothic and strange ways of the Addams family, with some good family comedy, and you have, in my opinion, one of the best family movies ever made. It's a classic. It's as simple as that. So if you've never seen it, what are you doing? If you have, I bet you've already got a rewatch coming up very soon. For me, 1991's The Addams Family gets an easy 5 out of 5. It may just be nostalgia talking for me, but I really believe this is one of the best family movies ever, and if you're not already, you should probably watch it very soon. Our second movie for the week is Netflix's Night Books.
Where am I? Hello?
Is there any reason I should let you live?
I write scary stories.
I'm going to need a story every night, or it's the last thing you'll ever do. You all try and run. There's no escape.
Don't just stand there. Come on, I'm Yasmin.
Are you a prisoner too?
Yeah. The apartment can do magical things. It travels all over the world and has room to hold anything.
What's that?
This is your life now. Forget your family, focus on being useful to the witch. Write scary stories, because if you don't, you'll be lucky if she kills you.
Yes, there's a way out of this place. We just need to work together.
Okay, what's your plan? I could write a story to trick her. You know what happens if she figures out what we're up to, right?
I know what happens if we don't try.
Night Books follows Alex, played by Winslow Fegley, a young boy obsessed with horror and all things scary. He writes scary stories in his spare time, which he calls night books. Alex seems upset at the start of the movie, and while looking at his night books, he overhears his parents discussing the fact that something has happened, and maybe it's time they force him away from his love of horror. Hurt by this, Alex packs a bag with his night books and he sneaks out of the apartment, heading for the elevator. The door to an apartment next to the elevator is open, and we see a creepy looking room with a TV playing classic film The Lost Boys. The room is lit red, and at first Alex resists temptation. But as I think many of us would find, he simply cannot resist The Lost Boys. The door slams behind Alex, and he's trapped in the apartment. Turns out he's been lured into a trap by an evil witch, Natasha, played by Kristen Ritter, who finds out Alex writes scary stories and demands he tell her one every night. Alex meets another young prisoner, Yasmin, played by Lydia Jewett. They work together to figure out how to escape the evil witch. They notice that the house shakes and moans when it's supposedly awakened, and that evil witch Natasha is scared of it herself. They also befriend the witch's hairless cat Lenore, and Alex learns along the way to embrace his love of horror and what makes him special. Alex and Yasmin discover that Lenore is just as much of a prisoner as they are, and the trio work together to escape, discovering an interesting twist as they do. Night Books is not your normal family kids film. It has some genuine creep factor to it, and I think some children will definitely find it a little too scary. I watched it with my kids and they both really enjoyed it, but my older daughter was a little creeped out too. At its core, Nightbooks is a movie about something we all feel at any age, the need to fit in and to be accepted. It's very much a coming-of-age tale, but it's not done in a heavy-handed way at all. There's a nice few horror Easter eggs in there too. Fangoria magazine makes an appearance, The Lost Boys pops up a few times, and as Alex tells his horror stories, the film switches to a style that is not too dissimilar to the old black and white horror classics like Nosferatu. As the film goes on and embraces the horror genre, you may wonder if it's actually appropriate for children, and I'd say that it is, very much so. Over the last decade or two, I'd say, we've shied away from children's horror, but fortunately, it seems to be making a comeback with movies like Nightbooks, Goosebumps, and TV shows like Are You Afraid of the Dark are making a comeback. Now seems to be a really great time for children's horror. Winslow Fegley does a fantastic job as young Alex, with a truly believable performance, particularly in one pivotal scene that harkens back to feelings we've all experienced at some point growing up. I guarantee some of you will struggle to keep a dry eye. Kristen Ritter gives a great performance as the evil witch Natasha, and she does a fantastic job of making you dislike the fussy, cruel witch, and really digs her heels into the role. The visuals in the film are great too, considering effects both physical and digital are used quite a lot throughout the movie. Usually budgets can become constrained, and that can start to show, but Nightbooks does a really good job of keeping consistent good quality effects throughout the movie. Nightbooks gets a solid 3.5 out of 5 from me. It is a good family children's horror story that we'll likely watch around Halloween each year in my household, but I can't see my kids wanting to watch it outside of the season, which is what brings it down to a 3.5 for me. Either way, I think you should all check it out, whether you have kids or not. It is a good, fun family horror in its own right. Now thank you for tuning in to this week's Wretched Review. Join us next week when we'll be checking out all 3 parts of R.L. Stine's Fear Street.
Props for props.
This week on Props for Props, I thought we'd take a look at a mainly foam-made prop to keep things tied to our earlier Haunt Tips segment. To tie even more closely to that, I've decided that this week's Props for Props goes to James McClarty's projector box. Yes, you heard that right, my ghoulish listeners, a projector box. But if you are a member of the UK Halloween Prop Makers group, you may have already seen that Jimmy's projector box isn't just a box at all. James has done an awesome job utilising foam to turn the projector box into a raised tomb or grave. Starting with the kind of storage box you can normally find for around a tenner in stores like Wilkinson's and B&M, James cuts out one side of the box, and a hinge was added along with a sheet of perspex that creates a nice clear window for the projector to shine through while being protected from the elements. Foam boards were then used to build a base, cover the sides, create a raised tomb/grave style top for the box, with a raised plaque sitting atop it all, made from a smaller piece of foam and some wooden detailing. James then very cleverly added what I think is one of those metal wire file paper holder thingies that act as a cradle for the projector while it sits within the box, meaning it won't get knocked around. The foam was then sealed with Mod Podge and painted with an airbrush filled with greys and a little green to give that nice grimy effect. The wooden detail pieces were then finished to look like rusted bronze, and I think those in the group that have seen James's work will agree. He's done a fantastic overall job with this. What started as a way for him to get his projector outside turned into a fantastic looking prop in its own right. And if you've not seen it, look up James McClarty in the UK Halloween Prop Makers group, or trawl through the recent group pictures. You'll find a truly great looking final product, and I can't wait to see what it looks like as part of James's Canberra crypt. And that's that for this week's Props for Props. Come back next week and see what's picked next. Who knows? The zombie hordes of Hallowscream could be shambling their way to you.
Terrifying Tutorials.
Welcome back to Terrifying Tutorials, where this week we're going to be checking out foam builds, and we've got some great tutorials to share with you. First up, we have an awesome build from the inspiration for this show, Hauntcast. In it, host Chris Baker shows us how to build a well for our haunts, utilising a large plastic bucket or tub and a load of foam. The video is about 8 minutes long, and it's well worth checking out if you want to build a prop well or something similar. Chris goes through the whole build process, from moulding and gluing the foam, to painting and decorating, and sealing it all in at the end. It's a great overall video, and I really recommend it if you think you'd like something like this in your haunt, or something similar. Our second video is a foam tombstone tutorial from the Wicked Makers YouTube channel. This 15-minute video shows you how to build large foam tombstones using many of the tools we listed earlier in the show. This one is a really good, nicely detailed video, and if everyone stops acting insane over fuel, I may well be heading to my local DIY stores soon to pick up some foam and follow the video myself. Next we have a great video from the guys at Van Oaks Props, showing us how to make realistic looking wooden boards out of foam. Ideal if you need to do some set dressing or are building something to look like a wooden shack or crate. This 8-minute video provides a super simple way of making your foam boards look like wood, and does a very good job of showing you how to paint them without losing any of that detail you've created along the way. It's genuinely crazy how much you can make a piece of foam look just like an old plank of wood, but Van Oaks Props manages to show us how to do just that. Next up we have our kid-friendly tutorial. We have a tutorial on making some foam bats, the kind of things you'd see around the house as a decoration, or maybe you could put several on some bunting, that kind of thing. Either way, this nice little 3-minute video from channel Wicked Sippers, Trippers and Flippers shows you everything you need and how to make these very simple, old school decorations. Our last tutorial for this week is from Mark Doring on YouTube, and it's a tutorial for building a small fire and cauldron prop using a plastic cauldron, some orange lights and great stuff foam. As with most of these foam prop builds, the video shows you how to build a simple but very effective prop. It seems great stuff isn't hugely available in the UK, but there are alternatives. And if you wanted to try this and can't find those alternatives yourself, be sure to ask in the comments or in the UK Halloween Prop Makers group, and we'll help you find what you need. These foam fires are actually really simple to do, and they look great at the end of it. I'm going to try one next year for sure. I don't think I've got enough time now with the other stuff I want to build, but I'm definitely going to be using this video to help me do that. And that's it for this week's segment, so be sure to join us next week when we'll be checking out zombie themed videos on terrifying tutorials. Well, that's that. We've reached the end of this week's Hallowscream. Before I return to the crypt and get back to building props, Hallowscream is always looking to improve, so if you have any comments or suggestions, please put them in the comments if listening on YouTube, or you can comment on the UK Halloween Prop Makers group if you're a member. Now, while I can just about manage this show by myself, someone else taking on a segment or two would really help me out. So if you think you'd be interested in taking over as the host of one of our segments, then please do get in touch. I would be more than happy to have you aboard. Whichever platform you're listening on, be sure to do all that good stuff, be that rating, hitting the like button and or subscribing. Now we got all that kind of normal outro stuff out of the way, it really is time for me to hop back into that crypt and get building. So until next time, my freakish friends, stay scary.